How we doing? I am your host, Robert T. Gardner Jr., also known as Dr. Rob. Welcome to Station BOB. And let me tell you a little about thee. I am a kid from a Harlem hood who turned out good. I got educated like I should. Now I know how to help you grow to become the best of your being in life, love, and work. With that said, I am here to provide you with some clarity associated with the perplexity of the challenges in your life, love, and work. So, without further ado, let's get down on it. Enjoy the show. Yes, welcome once again, my friend, to Station BOB, where you listen to learn how to become the best of your being in life, love, and work. I am your host, Dr. Rob, and as always, I am excited, happy, enthusiastic, and ready to provide you with another good podcast. So I want to thank you once again, my friend, for tuning in. And I have a special podcast for you today. I said special, but I'm going to say this podcast is more about food for thought, to give you something to think about. So after you listen to this podcast, please tell a friend, tell a foe, tell everybody you know to download the podcast at Station BOB, where we provide content to make good people better and sad people glad. With that said, before I venture into my discussion about today's topic, which is there are 4 parenting styles. Can you imagine that? There were actually these researchers and I don't know if they're mental health therapists or just generalist therapists, but these researchers have come up and discovered that there are 4 parenting styles. 4 styles, 4 ways that we tend to parent our children. And so, before I take a deep dive into those 4 parenting styles, I would like to share a few things about my understanding of children as it relates to my parenting style. But now also, my parenting style, I just want to note, falls in between at least 1.5 of the 4 parenting styles that I will be talking about. So what I'd like to say is that sometimes my wife and I are not the best parents we can be. Now, we're good parents, but, giving your kids everything they want, everything they ask for, that is not a sign of a good parent. So that's why I say that my wife and I, sometimes we are not the best parents we can be, because we have spoiled our children with all or most of the things they want, all the things they ask for. And sorry, that is just not the sign of a good parent. Simply because children cannot handle. We want to make our children happy and everything, but children cannot handle getting everything they want, because when they do, they lose their ever-loving minds. And so, what my wife and I have discovered from this type of parenting, meaning always giving the children what they want, always giving them what they ask for, not what they need, but what they want. And I have a 22-year-old, she's spoiled because she came up through this Gardner system of loving your children. But right now I'm talking about my 11-year-old son and my 9-year-old daughter. Okay. And so, as I was saying, my wife and I, we have talked about this type of parenting where we realize that we tend to, in our mind, and I'm sure in your mind, you just want your children to be happy. So what do? You get them everything they ask for. Mommy, can I have this? Mommy, can I have this cotton ball? Mommy, can I have this dust? Would you buy me this dust floating around the mall? I want the dust. I want the dust floating around the mall. I want the dirt on the floor. Can I have the popcorn? The popcorn that somebody else spills? Well, yes, you can have that popcorn too. That is not a way to parent your child. Because when you say yes to everything and no to nothing, then what the result is of that type of parenting is you get a spoiled brat. Yeah, that's right. I said it. You get a spoiled brat. And I have two of them. Actually, three. The 22-year-old, she's spoiled, but she's away in her 4th year of college. But she's a brat too, because she came up, as I said earlier, in this Gardner system of loving and spoiling your children. And I have to say right off the top, nothing spoiled is good. Have you ever enjoyed a cup of spoiled milk? Or what about spoiled meat? Meat that is just went bad on you. Have you ever barbecued and tasted a spoiled steak? Ooh, that sounds like stomach poisoning to me. And then I remember when I was young and I used to meet girls and they used to say, they'd be attractive young ladies and they would say, well, I'm spoiled. What? Let me tell you something. Nothing spoiled is good. And again, that would include spoiled milk is not good. Spoiled meat is not good. Spoiled girlfriends is not good. And definitely spoiled children are not good. So what my wife and I have found is that when you consistently say yes to your children and give your children or our kids, I'll just keep it on me for right now. When you give your kids anything and everything they ask for, they become spoiled brats. And we have seen the development of that with our own children. And we are like, what? What have we done? And right off the top, we have come to realize that it is our fault. We cannot blame the children because they are children. And we could have said no. We could have said, yes, come on, just keep going. Just stop asking for everything and looking at everything. We are in the mall looking for 1 or 2 specific things. We came to the mall to buy some drawers, to buy some underwear, not toys, not 8 pair of sneakers, and so on and so on and so on. Yep. That's right, I said it. Because it has been a reality in my life. And probably in your house too. If you never say no, and most of the time you give your children everything they ask for. So, what Dr. Rob says about that is, sometimes you have to say no to your children, even if you can afford to get them what they cry for. It is imperative that you strike a balance between yes and no. No, Cindy. No, Cameron. No, Madison. We are not doing that. We are not buying that. We are not, or you are not going there today. Because when you constantly and consistently say yes to your children, and then that day comes, or that time comes, when you may not have the funds, or you may not want to be bothered. I mean, sometimes you're a parent. You cannot tell me that sometimes you just don't want to be bothered. Because sometimes you can become so inundated with the wants and the needs of your own children that you're like, I wish I had a grandmother or grandparents or grandfather to let my children go spend a doggone month with their grandparents. Okay, sometimes parents need a break. All right, sometimes parents need a break. So when the time comes where you may not have funds, or you just may not want to be bothered with what your children are asking you to do, or with what they want, you have to say no to your child. And my wife and I, we have discovered, because we have said yes so much, when we say no, our children lose their ever-loving minds. And just like our children, I'm sure your children too, they may yell, cry, act out, or all of the above, because they did not get their way. Therefore, parents, it is imperative that you strike a balance between yes and no in order to deflate your child's expectations to get all that he or she asks for. Let me tell you something. Spoiled children are a no-no. What say you about that? I said, what? Yeah, that's a double U. That's a double. Wonk, 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 wonk. My children, your children, they need to know how to handle rejection. If you are not rejected sometimes, you may not learn how to get over being rejected. You know, there's a lot of men out there who are stalking and even sometimes taking drastic steps to get the attention of women that are not interested in them anymore because of their abusive ways. And so we need to learn and understand that it's okay to be rejected. It's okay to say no to your children. And your children need to understand that it's okay. Everything's going to be all right. Just because you did not get that app today, or that whatever you requested or you demanded from your parents, tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow is another day. And if you do not say no as a parent, your children may not grow as individuals, understanding that everything in life is not going to be decided or is not going to go in their favor. Therefore, our children Our children need to be able to handle rejection. So the next time your child asks for something you can do for them, just for no reason at all, say no. And begin the process to strike a balance with your child or children between yes and no, so you can help them grow to become well-balanced men and women. Now, with that said, let's talk about the 4 parenting styles and the pros and cons related to them that may or may not benefit your children. And we'll pick up on the parenting styles after we return from the promo.
Relationship Readiness Life and Work Preparedness Services, the place you come to for coaching, consulting, and counseling in life, love, and work. We are a multi-purpose service organization that will coach you up, educate, guide, and motivate you to succeed. We provide management training and consulting services for all businesses in the areas of employee relations, unionized employees, progressive discipline, the annual review process, and emotional intelligence to develop effective leaders for your organization. And our relationship counseling services for individuals, couples, groups show you how to become relationship ready with improved self-esteem, resilience, and self-awareness. To learn more about our programs and services, please contact Robert T. Gardner Jr. by email at changeagentrtg@gmail.com or request a meeting for a free 1-hour consultation at relationshipreadiness.org. Thank you, and let's go back to Station BOB.
Okay, welcome back, and thank you for hanging with me tonight at Station BOB, where you listen to learn how to become the best of your being in life, love, and work. So let me ask you, what are your thoughts? Is there anything good about a spoiled child? I'm waiting. Yeah, just like I figured. Crickets. I mean, we love our children. And the worst thing we can do in our love for our children is to spoil them. But I think I've made my point in regard to our children as spoiled brats. Now I want to turn to the topic of the show. That there are 4 types of parenting styles, and each of these parenting styles have effects on your children. Now, mind you, I am not trying to bind any parent and lock you in on any one of these particular parenting styles. But the truth of the matter is, for many of us as parents, we tend to parent along the lines that are delineated in these 4 parenting styles. And I will say for me, my parenting style falls within at least 1.5 of these 4 different parenting styles. So without further delay, let me just roll on into these 4 types of parenting styles and their effects on your children. So the question to you is, what is your parenting style? Your parenting style can affect everything from how much your child weighs to how he or she feels about herself. This is important to know. It's important to ensure that your parenting style is supporting healthy growth and development, because the way you interact with your child and how you discipline he or she will influence your child for the rest of their lives. And this is based on what researchers say. And researchers have identified 4 types of parenting styles. The first being authoritarian. The next is authoritative. And after that, we have permissive. And after that, we have uninvolved, which used to be called laissez-faire. Same thing. It means hands off. The parent is not involved. And so this is, I say this podcast really is about food for thought regarding, you as a parent. And I meet so many women who just want to have kids. I got to have a kid. I want children. And, like the rest of us before we had children, they know nothing about really what it takes to be a parent. So with that said, let's talk about the 4 parenting styles. The first being the authoritarian parent. And let me know if any of these statements sound like you. You believe kids should be seen and not heard. This is the authoritarian parent. When it comes to rules, you believe it's my way or the highway. Now, I'd like to say that I have 3 children, and in the early days of my parenting with my first child, that was my approach. I mean, I'm a nice guy, but I just kind of had the idea that, I am DADDY, and you do what I say. Like my father used to say, Rob, is my way or the highway. And so for many of us, we parent the way we were parented. And so sometimes there's a 5th parenting style, and that is the style that you may have acquired from the way that your parent parented you. So continuing on with the components of the authoritarian parent. You don't take your child's feelings into consideration. Wow. Now, as a parent, you must remember that children are people too. They're just not little people that you teach how to have manners. You teach how to sit up at the table. You teach them to do whatever you teach them. Children are people too. And this 4th component says that authoritarian parents says you don't take your child's feelings into consideration. Oh my God. That's pretty serious. So if any of these things ring true, you might be an authoritarian parent. Authoritarian parents believe kids should follow the rules without exception. Yeah, that's right. You do what I said because I said it. God damn it. That's how the parents used to talk when I was growing up. You do what I say, God damn it. Authoritarian parents are famous for saying, because I said so. See, that's what I'm talking about. When a child questions the reasons behind a rule, authoritarian parents are not interested in negotiating, and their focus is on obedience. They also don't allow their kids to get involved in problem-solving challenges or obstacles. Instead, they make the rules. My way or the highway. That's what my father used to tell me. Rob, It's my way or the highway. And these type of parents enforce the consequences with little regard for a child's opinion. I want you to remember here that children are people too. And the things we do to our children as children is a part of their formative years. And what we do to them is their view, their vision. That becomes a part of their life. And what you do to your children, they may do to their children. Authoritarian parents may use punishments instead of discipline. Let me just say this. Punishments, wow, and discipline. I'll talk about the way I discipline my children in a minute. So let me just repeat that. Authoritarian, why am I having so much trouble with this word? Authoritarian parents may use punishments instead of discipline. So rather than teach a child how to make a better choice, they're interested in making kids feel sorry for their mistakes. Children who grow up with strict, authoritarian parents tend to follow rules much of the time, but their obedience comes at a price. Children of authoritarian parents are at a higher risk of developing self-esteem problems because their opinions are not valued. And see, for children, I'll tell you straight up as a therapist, for children, the first step into life, into standing up to bullies, into believing in oneself, is to have good self-esteem. And so what this research is showing, that if your parenting style follows or mimics the elements that I have just described to you, then your children are at a higher risk of developing self-esteem problems because their opinions are not valued. And you want your children, I can understand you want your children to listen to you, to be obedient, but you don't want to smother them and you don't want to kill the self and the self-esteem of your children. Children need to have good self-esteem. In addition, they may also become hostile or aggressive. Rather than think about how to do things better in the future, they often focus on the anger they feel towards their parents, because authoritarian parents tend to be a little meaner than the average parent. And since authoritarian parents are often strict, the children may grow up to become liars in an effort to avoid punishment. And I can say firsthand, I'm going to tell you firsthand, I can speak to the fact that there is much truth in that. Because my first daughter, her mother was an authoritarian parent. That was her style. Very punitive, no TV, just bologna sandwiches and warm water. Okay? And let me tell you something. My daughter, the oldest one, has become somewhat of a teller of untruths, and AKA a liar, because she grew up in an environment where she had to tell lies in order to avoid punishment. So think about that when you are coming down hard on your children because you are the mother or father. Picture that. Think about this. We raise our children. They are our children for a minute. But once they become 13, 14, and 15, then they start making up their own minds. And they want to do their own things. And so, our children, we don't own them. We pay for them. We take care of them. We feed them. We raise them. We teach them. But these are children, are people too. And they are going to grow up and move out into the world. And so you need to understand that these are not your personal possessions. Okay? And my 22-year-old daughter, she let me know, listen, dude, you may have taught me most of the things I know, but that does not matter anymore because I, at 22, know everything. And if you have a 22, 23, 24-year-old child, even a 15 or 16-year-old child, you know that they start to think that they know everything. So moving right along, the authoritative parent. Let's see if any of these statements sound like you. You put a lot of effort into creating and maintaining a positive relationship with your child. You explain the reasons behind your rules. You enforce rules and give consequences, but take your child's feelings into consideration. If those statements sound familiar, you may be an authoritative parent. And authoritative parents, they have rules and they use consequences, but they also take their children's opinions into account. They validate their children's feelings while also making it clear that the adults are ultimately in charge. Now, this is my parenting style, and I believe it's the parenting style of my wife's as well. Although we both venture, we both kind of, at least early in our parenting lives, I think, me more so than my wife ventured into that authoritarian parenting style because I believe, I didn't negotiate with children. My father used to tell me, Rob, it's my way or the highway. And so you parent sometimes how you were parented. And so I kind of early on in my parenting development, I parented with that same, it's my way or the highway. But that I have evolved and come a long way. And to be honest with you, them spankings and that strict punishment, that don't do a doggone thing to turn your kids around. Once again, kids are people too. So we need to talk to our children. We need to hug our children. We need to encourage our children. And by golly, our children will push the envelope to the point where you want to do something drastic, but in the end, you got to hug them, love them, and dig deep and have the patience of Job. Okay, so moving right along. Authoritative parents invest time and energy into parenting behavior problems before they start. They also use positive discipline strategies to enforce positive behavior like praise and reward systems. Let me tell you, my 22-year-old daughter, the way I used to, I don't even like to use the word punish. My system of punish was what I call corrective action. I wanted to correct her behavior. And one of the ways I used to correct my daughter's behavior is when, she wasn't much trouble other than being disrespectful, hard-headed, and all the other things that come along with these adolescents. This is not even millennial behavior. This is just the behavior of children because I behaved the same way as a 15, 16, 17-year-old when I was growing up. So this is not a millennial thing. This is a teenage adolescent thing. But anyway, when I had to apply some corrective action with my daughter, I would have her read. As an African American, our children don't know our history the way we should. So one of the ways I dealt with her is I had a book on African American history, that went back to the abduction of Africans in Africa all the way up to history in its current form, right up to President Barack Obama. And I would have her select a chapter or two of her choice. She had to pick the chapter. And that way I knew if she picked a chapter, she would be more inclined to read what she was required to read. And then also she had to read and then write a 2 or 3 page composition on what she read and select 5 to 10 vocabulary words that she did not know the meaning of, and use them in a sentence. And once she completed that assignment, then she was back on the street doing her thing. That's how I dealt with her. So let me just continue on. Researchers have found that kids who have authoritative parents are most likely to become more responsible adults who feel comfortable in expressing their opinion. Remember, kids are people too. Children raised with authoritative discipline tend to be happy and successful. They are also more likely to be good at making decisions and evaluating safety risks on their own. And with that said, I'm going to step aside, let a promo in, and we'll pick up this discussion on the other side of the break.
Have you read any good books lately? Your host, Robert T. Gardner Jr., also known as Dr. Rob, is the author of 3 great books. In his first book, The Choices We Make, Robert takes a look at relationships to help readers learn how to have a good relationship with themselves before they can have good relationships with others. In his second book, Access Denied, Robert brings an eye-opening perspective about what happens to children and fathers when their relationships with the mothers of their children end on bad terms. Robert explores what he calls child porn, when a parent, usually the mother, uses a child as a weapon to hurt the other parent. Robert provides a let-go lab in his book to help parents find positive ways to resolve their issues in the best interest of their children. Light Up Your Life is Robert's latest book. Robert writes about the fact that we are all born with a special God-given talent. Even though we are all born with a special talent, most of us miss our true calling. In this book, you will learn how to find your special talent and light up your life so that you can become the person you were born to be and live a more fulfilled, purpose-driven life. Books are available at barnesandnobles.com, amazon.com, and Robert's website, relationshipreadiness.org. Thank you, and back to the show.
All right, welcome back. I think this is a good time to laugh. I have moved away from my laughter segment. But let me tell you something. When you are raising children, they say the darndest things, and they will make you laugh. So take a minute to think about your children and the kind of things they do to make you laugh, because I'd like to take a time out just to laugh. Yeah, I think laughter is so important. As I once, I think my true calling in life was to be a comedian. I have always been a funny guy. And, I thought we should take a second to laugh, because when I think about my 11-year-old son, Isaiah, he is approaching that preteen age. And he is really flirting with that whole, adolescent disrespectful thing. He's already, standing up to me and talking a bit too much. He reminds me of his sister, the one in college. By the time she turned 14, she had lost her mind and forgot that I taught her everything she knew: how to ride a bike, how to swim, how to love herself, how to be confident, how to sit up straight at the table, how to count money, how to dress, how to put lotion on her legs. I can, just on and on and on. And I have to tell you, parents, especially if you're a new parent, your children will lose their minds somewhere around the age of 12-ish, 13. By 14, they're gone. They know it all. And then, let me just say this about my daughter. And when she was 7, 8, 9, and we drive up and down the highways, she was such a communicator. We would talk and laugh. After she got to high school, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, everything I asked her, no, good. Come on, Dad. I already answered that. No, good. They revert to the one-word answers. I mean, I think my children, my daughter spoke more when she was a baby, when she couldn't speak, than she did as a teenager. Oh my God. They stopped talking to you. They stopped sharing with you. Once they become 14, 15, 16, 17, the answers are no, good. Come on, Dad. Why you keep asking me that? So I'm just trying to let you know. I'm just trying to let you know what's to come if you don't know already. So, to keep it moving, let's move to the permissive parent. Let me know if any of these statements sound like you. You set rules but rarely enforce them. You don't give out consequences very often. You think your child will learn best with little interference from you. Do those statements sound familiar? You might be. If they do, you might be a permissive parent. In other words, permissive parents are lenient. They often only step in when there's a serious problem. They're very forgiving, and they adopt an attitude that kids will be kids. And when you do this, you may not stick to the consequences that you originally tried to apply to a situation. You might invoke some corrective action, and then your child might beg. They may beg you to allow them to get off the hook, and they promise that they will be good. You see, for early parents, you usually take on more of a friendship type of role with your children. And these type of parents, the friendship parent, the permissive parent, often encourages their children to talk with them about their problems, but they usually don't put much effort into discouraging poor choices or bad behavior. Children who grow up with permissive parents are more likely to struggle academically, and they may exhibit behavioral problems as they don't appreciate authority and rules. Usually children that grow up with permissive parents or raised by permissive parents, they often have low self-esteem, and they may, report being sad a lot. These children who are raised by permissive parents are at higher risk for health problems like obesity because permissive parents struggle to limit junk food intake. They are even more likely to have dental cavities because permissive parents often don't enforce good habits like ensuring a child brushes his teeth. Well, I have to tell you, my wife and I, we are enforcing the brush your teeth rule every day after most of the meals and junk that our children eat. And so it's important to, this is just really, I'm just providing these parenting styles as food for thought. I cannot tell you how to parent. I'm just basically trying to shed some light to enlighten you on some of the ramifications and some of the outcomes that we don't see at first. Because these things don't, they just seem regular. They seem normal because this is the way you run your household. But what we do with our children, what we do to our children, what we do for our children, all of these things have some type of impact, either an adverse impact or a positive impact on our children. And so this is food for thought so that you can become more self-aware, more aware of what it takes to raise the children that you gave birth to. Now, last but not least, we usually say we save the best for last, but this is not the best example of a parenting style, and that would be the uninvolved parent. And let me know if any of these statements sound familiar to you. You don't ask your child about school or homework. You rarely know where your child is or who he or she is with. You don't spend much time with your child. If these statements sound familiar to you, then you might be what they call an uninvolved parent. Or back in the day, they used to say this is a laissez-faire parenting style. When it's typically totally hands-off. Your children they're raising themselves. You might put some food, on top of the stove or on the table for them to eat, but you're not eating with them. You're not talking to them about table manners, sitting up straight, or teaching them how to cut a steak. Uninvolved parents tend to have little knowledge of what their children are doing, and they tend to have few rules. Children may not receive much guidance, nurturing, or parenting attention. Uninvolved parents expect children to raise themselves. Can you imagine that? That's like a stray dog or alley cat out on the street looking for food, looking for people to be with, looking for something to do because their own parents who, conceived them, gave birth to them, have nothing to do with them. The uninvolved parent. These type of parents don't devote much time or energy into meeting their children's basic needs. Uninvolved parents may be neglectful, but it's not always intentional. A parent with mental health issues or substance abuse problems, for example, may not be able to care for a child's physical or emotional needs on a consistent basis. At other times, uninvolved parents lack knowledge about child development, and sometimes they're simply overwhelmed with other problems like work, paying bills, and managing a household. Children with uninvolved parents are likely to struggle with self-esteem. Here again, we have another parenting style that adversely impacts your child's self-esteem. And I have to tell you, as a therapist, self-esteem, your child's self-esteem, if you give your child nothing else, you should work with them on improving their self-esteem. Because a child with good self-esteem may not be bullied. A child with good self-esteem may not be a bully. A child with good self-esteem may tend to lead and not follow. A child with good self-esteem may tend to make his or own decisions that are good, that are positive. A child with good self-esteem tends to care more about himself or herself. And so we don't want to adopt or practice parenting styles that diminish the self-esteem of our children. Because I'm going to tell you, in the beginning and in the end, children with good self-esteem tend to do better, feel better, and achieve more. And so children who grow up under the auspices of a permissive parent, they tend to perform poorly in school, exhibit frequent behavior problems, and rank low in happiness. You hear that? Rank low in happiness. And a child that is not happy is a child with poor self-esteem. And with that said, I want to thank you, my friend, for riding with me once again on this podcast. Hopefully you learned something new. You learned something that would behoove you as a parent. And remember, you are not going to just have a good day. You know how people say, have a good day, Rob. Have a good day, Mike. Have a good day, Cindy. No. You're not just going to have a good day. You have to make it a good day. And when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, don't you ever, never quit. And as always, remember, love is an action, not a word, and it's not supposed to hurt. And remember, you can get my podcast anywhere you get your other podcasts from. Thank you so much for riding with me today. And until the next time we meet, don't hurt nobody. Peace. As we wrap up this show, I hope this topic helped you to grow. And now you know a little bit more than you knew before. If you have any questions about this topic, please email me at changeagentrtg@gmail.com. See my website, relationshipreadiness.org, to learn more about my counseling, consulting, and educational programs related to life, love, and work. Finally, in the words of the late, great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., if I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody he is traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain. Until we meet again, do the right thing when nobody is looking. Peace, beloved.